Hello everyone, Tina here for Papertrey Inc. I hope your day is going fabulous. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today I'm excited to share a project with you. We're creating a Halloween card, a filled Halloween card. We're using two new items over the Papertrey Inc. shop. We have the Spooky Halloween stamp set, and then we also have the Spooky Treat labels. We're going to use the Spooky Treat labels for our greeting. And both of these sets have coordinating dies, so it makes it easy to cut out. We're going to jump in and get started. We're going to do some stamping. I'm going to do repeat stamping, so I'm going to bring in my stamping positioner and a piece of white cardstock. We're going to start off by stamping our witch's hat. We'll put this in the bottom corner here, and I'm going to be using Royal Velvet ink for my hat. I was actually tossing between a green witch's hat or a purple one, and I thought since we're going to add a little bit of green to our pumpkin stem, that purple would be better. So we'll ink this up. I'm going to ink it up once more. It's a pretty solid image, so just to get a great impression, we'll stamp it twice. I'm going to take my panel and just flip it around, and then we will just repeat the same process with the same Royal Velvet ink and stamp that witch's hat one more time. After we have our hat done, we're going to go in with our pumpkin. For the pumpkin, I'm using Canyon clay ink. All of the inks that I'm using today are from Papertrey ink, and Canyon clay seems to be like the perfect color for a pumpkin. Kind of looks like pumpkin pie color. I'm going to stamp this pumpkin a couple times. The stem's separate, which is nice. And then I'm going to flip my panel around and stamp it once more. And then we'll take that stem and ink it up with our new leaf ink. And our pumpkin is good to go. I think I have enough room to stamp a couple more images in that middle section of our panel. So in our stamp set, there's two bats and then there's two spiders. There's a larger one and a smaller one. I'm taking the larger of the two. So we'll take the large bat and the large spider, and I'm going to stamp that with my black ink, and then I'll stamp it actually twice. And this panel is pretty much filled. I'm loving the colors of this, so I'm going to remove this panel, clean off my stamp, and then we're going to stamp the witch's broom that's in our stamp set. So I'll bring in another cardstock. And for the witch's broom, it's two pieces. I'm using honey nut ink for the base of the broom, and we're going to do two brooms, so I'm going to stamp on this side. I'll flip it around and stamp it again. But before we stamp the handle, I'm going to die cut. So I separated the broom die, and then we're going to line it up on the bristle part of the broom, and then I'll die cut both of these out, and then I'll put the negative panel, keep the negative panel, we're going to put that back in the stamping positioner. This for me helps me line up, since the broom handle is thin, it just helps me line it up easily. I just put it in that negative piece, pick it up with the lid of my stamping positioner, and then we can insert our broom. And this is great for mass producing too. You have it perfectly positioned. I'm using dark chocolate ink for my broom handle. And we'll take this out and just replace it with our other broom. And then there are two spider webs in our stamp set. One is like a corner shape, and then the other one is a full spider web. I'm going to take that full spider web, and we're going to stamp that in the middle section of this panel. And I'll use my true black ink for this also. Just flip this panel around. And then we have lots of elements to die cut, so I'm going to separate my dies and we'll run everything through the die cut machine. Everything is die cut, and I did actually die cut one more spider web and hat and pumpkin and a couple extra spiders. I did that because I want to create a full background, and it's better to have more than less, and if you have extra, you could always put it on the inside of your card. Now we're going to stamp our greeting from the Spooky Treat labels stamp set. I chose Trick or Treat, and we're going to stamp this with black ink as well. And I love the distressed look of this. It kind of looks a little spooky. We'll stamp this, And then I'll take the coordinating die and we will cut this out. I love that the labels have dies too, so this makes it great for treats and for greetings. Now I'm going to take my greeting and I'm going to use my New Leaf ink. I'm going to use a finger dauber, and I want to add a little bit more green in my card today. So this is a great way to do it. I'm just taking my finger dauber and I'm going around the edges of my greeting. This way we have a little extra green in our background. I'm also going to add green to a background panel, but for the most part that's going to be covered. So our greeting is done. And then I have a panel that we are going to put everything on. This panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'll take my blending brush and take that same ink and we're going to go around the edges. I'm not going to do too much. I just want to add a little bit of color. We're going to do some more stamping around the edges here, but I did want to add in a little bit more color. In our stamp set we have that corner spider web. I'm going to pick this up with an acrylic block, and using my black ink I'm going to stamp this corner spider web in the corners of our panel. And it doesn't line up perfectly, but I like that it does fill in that corner. So we're going to do all 4 corners. Also in the stamp set there is a little a splatter image. I thought we would add some splatter to our background also. So we'll put this back, pick up that splatter, and then we will add this as well. And I'm starting off by going over the edges with this because that's the area that I think that it's going to need it the most. But there are so many elements for this card today. There's only going to be a little bit of splatter peeking out, but it's there. I'm going to take this panel. This is my A2 size card base. We're going to flip this around and we'll tack this down right over the front. Wipe off my work surface first so we don't transfer any ink. I always like leaving a little bit of a border on my card bases. To me it just kind of frames my card, and I like that look. Okay, let's start by adding our spider webs, and I think we're not going to add our brooms today, so we're going to put those off to the side. We'll save that for another project. I am going to pop each one of my elements up using some foam squares, and I'm only going to add one because I like to tuck under and over my elements when there's so many. So if you add too much foam tape you won't be able to tuck. So one in each one of our elements. I'm going to scoot this bottom one over just a little bit, and then I'll press them down. And we'll work on our sentiment next. Let's place this so this is centered. And then now all we're going to do is fill in the rest with all of our pumpkins and our witch's hat and our bats and our spiders. I like to kind of do the same element at the same time. So I'm putting one pumpkin next to a spider web. I'll do the same thing with the next pumpkin. I'll put the hat next to the pumpkin and so forth. To me, I get a little bit more of a uniform look. The nice thing about having smaller images like our spiders is they're great to fill in any open areas. And I do have a little bit of excess overhanging with the spider webs, so I'm going to use my scissors and I'll just trim that off. For bells and whistles, I'm bringing in some Papertrey ink rainbow gems, and I love the little itty bitty ones. I like putting those on the witch's hat for a little added sparkle, and also in the open areas that are on my panel. We'll fill those in with some extra sparkle. I love the way this looks. It looks busy, but not too busy. I think it's a great Halloween card. Now, I'm going to finish this card off by adding some googly eyes. It seems I always add googly eyes during Halloween. I just think they're playful and they're fun. And I did notice on the pumpkins that one eye was bigger than the other. So I'm switching out the same size eyes and putting a bigger one and then a smaller one on each one of the pumpkins. And I think this just makes it look wonky and a little bit fun, and that finishes my card today. Thanks so much for joining me. I wish you a lovely day. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.